654.
Good morning and welcome to the morning meeting. Thanks to everyone who came out last night. I don't know if we're having technical problems or if there was a problem with Amtrak, but when Mark and Dan click in, they'll join. So I'm going to kick it off. I'll just start with the day book and then what are you guys doing in my kitchen? Oh, okay. Apparently,
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning meeting. Thank you for joining. We are indeed Paul and Sean's kitchen today. Thank you for being part of the program. Delighted to have you here. I'll, as always, run through the day book and then the news, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's going on. And then, as always, we want your questions and comments. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your electronic hand. We'd love to get you in, including some new people. And if you're watching on YouTube or X, very popular these days, or at least much in the news, please, peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace to all. As Sean said, we had a great event last night. Super appreciative of those who came out, asked great questions, got to talk to people. People came from Oregon, California, Georgia. Where else?
Someone came from California for the second time.
Time.
Yep.
Three people came from over. There was a father and son there. Father's a Democrat, son's a Republican. And they talked about how much they love the platform. To be able
couples like that too.
Yeah, be able to talk. So very grateful, and we'll have more events coming up in the future. If you're going to be writing in the chat in X or YouTube, if you're new here, we don't take smack in the chat. Please just write nice things. They can be argumentative, they can be challenging, but don't insult anybody, please and thank you. All right. Tariffs, the big issue of the day. President Trump arriving at Andrews Air Force Base, or Joint Base Andrews last night, said he was going to talk to the Mexican and Canadian leaders today, although the Canadian leader at this hour, her finance minister, is briefing stakeholders about the tariffs that she will announce in a nationally televised address to the Mexican people at 10 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see what happens there. There continues to be confusion about who's driving this train besides Donald Trump and Peter Navarro and Miller. Who exactly is involved here? The two people who are most in line to be in charge of the tariff policy, the Commerce Secretary and the head of USTR, they're not confirmed yet. So there's some ambiguity there. Even well-informed people on Capitol Hill, lobbyists, even some reporters don't really understand exactly what's going on here. My sources continue to say, watch to see if this thing actually happens, or if it does, how long the tariffs stay on. A little while ago, Senator Grassley of Iowa tweeted that he wants an exemption for his Iowa farmers because the potash that's Canada produces, it's an essential ingredient for fertilizer, is pretty much only available at this point from Canada, and Iowa farmers would like a carve-out. We'll see what happens on that front. So that's one war that's being fought by President Trump, the trade war. J.D. Vance, no public events that we know about. Pete Hegseth is headed to the Mexican border today, to Fort Bliss, where he'll meet with members of the Joint Task Force North. Congress, is out, but the House is out. Hakeem Jeffries in Brooklyn, USA, having a press conference at 2 o'clock. Chuck Schumer, along with some of his colleagues, a press conference at 3:45. Originally called to talk about Elon Musk and his access to the Treasury payment system, but I bet you they talk about USAID as well.
Yeah, have a feeling.
5:30, Senate holds votes, some procedural, some passage of confirmation of Russell Vogt to be head of the OMB, as well as Pam Bondi and Chris Wright. And then the Ag Committee votes at 5:45 on Brooke Rollins. A little more news here. As we said, it's a two-front war. President Trump's war is on allies and others on trade. And the other war is Elon Musk and company on the, what do you want to call it, the entrenched bureaucracy of the deep state. USAID has gotten particular attention in the last 24 hours, or really more than that, 72 hours. Today, they told DC employees of the department of the agency not to come to work. And Elon Musk last night tweeted that USAID is a criminal organization, time for it to die. Not exactly the normal rhetoric you hear from an incoming administration. A lot of interest over the weekend in the status of the nominations of Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy, according to Fox News, did, as forecast, have a discussion, or at least one discussion, with Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, who's very key to his nomination prospects. Tulsi Gabbard, obviously a staunch viewer of two-way, followed Sean's advice and wrote an op-ed piece in Newsweek where she did what Sean advised. I suggested was a good idea too. She wrote about why she's not keen on identifying what's the guy's name?
Edward Snowden.
Edward Snowden. Thank you. As a treasonous. So the piece is about sort of her whole case of why she's the right person, but she does spend a fair amount of time making the substantive case. It's actually pretty good of why she doesn't use that word. Last note, which is on the president. He's restoring. People say he doesn't like tradition. Well, there's one tradition he does like, contrary to Joe Biden, who eschewed the last few Super Bowl interviews. Donald Trump will be sitting down. Fox, by coincidence, has the Super Bowl, and he'll be sitting down with real estate mogul Brett Baer,
His neighbor in Palm Beach.
yeah, his neighbor in Palm Beach, to talk about whatever it is they talk about. And I'll be curious to see where Fox puts it. Right, they can put it 2 in the afternoon,
right?
Or they can put it.
Going to be right in the lead up to it.
Yeah, it probably will be because it's a good exclusive, and we'll see. All right, can anybody name the president of Mexico's finance chief? Incredible name, Rogelio Ramirez de la O. I like the de la O. All right, so let's talk about the trade war first. Dan, are you thinking this is still a bluff, as my sources continue to tell me for weeks, or is he going to add others as he projected he might?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's a bluff. I think Sean said, last night, like once you start this, you have to win. You have to show the rest of the world that you're serious. You have to show the rest of the world that you're willing to stand by these threats. The problem is there's going to be real pain. People are going to feel the impact starting pretty soon. I think Chuck Schumer said last night, the price of guacamole and your, Dos Equis beer is going to go up by Sunday. And the fact that Chuck Grassley is already coming out, we're not even 24 hours in, and saying, wait, we need an exemption. We have a major...
And that's a significant carve out.
Right. And I mean, this is...
Well, just to be clear, 85%. So it's U.S. farmers that need it, right?
Well, and look, go back to the first term of the Trump administration. They made, I think it was $15 billion in payments to farmers because they didn't want them to feel the impacts of tariffs.
Right.
So apparently some Americans should feel it. Some Americans cannot. This is like the old Cornhusker kickback when they were putting together healthcare. Like, okay, we're going to exempt Iowa. Well, what happens now when the swing state of North Carolina needs an exemption?
Well, but it's not just, and just to be clear, I agree with you, but I'm saying it's not just Iowa, right?
Yeah, of course,
it's all growers that use it.
But here's the thing.
He obviously cares about Iowa.
Here's the thing. Do a quick imitation of Trump talking about how much the farmers like him.
They're my favorite. They love Trump.
Here's the thing. And this is what I don't get. He's not up for re-election.
Right.
And no Republican's up for re-election for federal office for 2 years, almost 2 years.
Well,
So I mean, as long as it works out before, then people sort of say like, oh, he loses the farmers. Doesn't matter right now.
Things are important in this. Number one is he's already projecting short-term pain.
Yes.
Right. He even said it again last night.
Yeah.
So this sense of disruption that there's no question we're going to see. He's projecting it. He knows it. So the idea of people coming to him and saying, Mr. President, prices are high, it's impacting. He says, I know, I've been telling you guys, it's going to last short term. So that's a tell. Two, I think that the Panama deal that we talked about last night, right? So you got Colombia, now Panama, and he feels emboldened. Let's go 3 for 3, right? He's not just going to fold on this. This is going to happen. Now, whether there's a carve out for fertilizer, I think, there's a possibility that you see a couple of these exemptions, but make no mistake, come 12:01 tonight,
unless there's the deal today.
Well, but I think that's part of the problem, though. Colombia and Panama folded within 24 hours.
Right.
So there was not pain felt by the average person. And I think the challenge, and this is where Democrats are going to jump in. For Democrats, you can put the sign, you can go home to your district. Every district will have an impact and say, this is harming you. So the president says there's going to be pain. When that pain happens and people call their member of Congress and say, we have a problem, we're going to have to lay people off or something of that nature. It's going to cost a lot more. I wonder his appetite to say, like Dick Cheney famously saying, hey, just because it's not popular, like tough, it's the right thing to do. Does he have the stomach?
Ron Johnson, weak-kneed MAGA, was on Newsmax this morning saying this is going to cause pain for my constituents. We got to watch closely. Let's play Trump from last night.
By the way, that doesn't mean I think that you still. I just want to be clear. I think it goes through.
Yeah.
But I get back to it could be 48 hours. But Canada, they're going to feel the pain big time.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I think that they are going to find a deal, but he needs it to go into effect.
Yeah.
So you can say it went into effect.
Unless they cave massively today.
Right.
Play 102, please. Trump talking last night about Canada and Mexico at Andrews.
I'm speaking with Prime Minister Trudeau tomorrow morning, and I'm also speaking with Mexico tomorrow morning. And I don't expect anything very dramatic. We put tariffs on. They owe us a lot of money, and I'm sure they're going to pay.
All right, so I watched a lot of financial news this morning, and people say there's only two things Donald Trump cares about: his approval rating and the markets. I don't think that's true, but people say that. The pre-trade numbers were not so bad, right? They weren't. They were not a huge collapse. Watch this. With someone I'm sure Donald Trump would listen to for advice. A Deutsche Bank economist from the UK. 103, please.
He's gone and done it.
Yes, he has, Darren, and this is really quite astonishing if you think about where we are in terms of the global economy right now, because if these tariffs go ahead, and there's still, just under 24 hours, so let's see if they actually do, but if these do go ahead, these in total will be worth 5 times the total tariffs Trump imposed in the entirety of his first term. So this is, if anything, the biggest kind of shock to global trade we've seen since World War II. And for Canada and Mexico in particular, who do a huge amount of their trade with the United States, this is seismic. This, if sustained, would likely push both of their economies into recession. And in economic terms, it would be a shock bigger than Brexit was for the UK.
All right, so a lot of confusion. I mentioned this before about who's actually driving this. Obviously, Lighthizer not driving it because he's not in the government. Lighthizer's replacement, his protege, has not been confirmed yet. He hasn't even had his hearing, I don't think. The Secretary of Commerce, who has designated the tariff czar, hasn't been confirmed. So I'm told reliably, then not a shock, Stephen Miller's involved, Peter Navarro's involved, but that some other economic officials have been cut out here. I don't know. What are you hearing?
It was on CNBC this morning talking about conversations, which would make you think he's clearly in the loop. The question
Did his heart seem in it to you?
I mean, clearly, I don't think this is his default position, but he was a trusted aide for 4 years. The guy didn't come back into the fold without buying into the agenda, right? So I think he understands
what happens if the markets crash?
I don't think they will crash, but I think, look, this is they've prepped him. Again, I go back to the point that Trump said this. There's going to be short-term pain. So there's a difference between a sell-off and a crash. How much did Wall Street bake into this already? Because I think there's going to be a delta between what they baked in and the reality of it going in. And there's still this sense, I think, that, okay, it's only going to last 48 hours. The question is, what happens on Thursday or Friday, not what happens tomorrow or Wednesday.
I agree. Dan, should Democrats be rooting for, the big line is, the guacamole Super Bowl, but should Democrats be publicly avoiding seeming like they're rooting for a problem?
Absolutely. You do not want to be rooting for any American to suffer. You want the best for America. So you want Trump to be successful. But what is appropriate is to highlight the pain this is causing, because there is a reason that historically people have not used tariffs in the last 100 years to try to get their way. Ultimately, nobody wins in a tariff showdown. There's talk about the EU is going to be next.
So I was going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because if he's successful with this week, EU, watch out.
But what's successful? Except for them backing down, there's no success that you can show this week. There's only bad things this week, except that the markets don't go down.
If he gets something substantial from Canada
and calls them off.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I think that then he's really emboldened, and next thing you know, you're going to have a massive market access issue for Europe.
Yeah.
Well, I think the issue, though, is, and I think we all would agree, nobody knows what victory is. So Trump hasn't defined it. That's smart. Trump will likely declare victory, whatever that is. If victory is small, I think the Europeans and the Chinese will say, that's what this was all about. That's how we get out of this. Like, I think for Trump, the danger is you need a pound of flesh if you're going to really seriously do this. And I think when it comes to the EU, China is preparing their retaliatory tariffs, places where we have significant exposure as a country. And so I think for Democrats, it is appropriate to say, this guy ran on fixing the economy, bringing down inflation, and making your economic situation better. It could be that in 6 months, that is the case. These ultimately are a step backward to take many forward. But there are a lot of smart people who think this is a step backward to take another step backwards if he goes through.
But
and that's appropriate.
until and unless the Democrats in the court in Congress or Republicans in Congress and the courts say you don't have this power, and some people think he doesn't, he can keep crying wolf, right? He could take them off today and say, you know, it turns out the Canadians didn't do everything they said. I'm putting them back.
Right. Well, Congress, I believe, can actually override the tariffs by revoking the emergency power.
You'd need a majority.
That would be a very significant step.
Oh, yeah, that would be huge.
And I doubt we're going to see that anytime soon. Right.
All right. Let's talk about Elon Musk.
By the way, can I say one thing that's sort of been missing in the financial coverage to some, at least for me? You've got Canada, Mexico, the big thing. Where the Chinese have been kind of quiet on this.
Because they haven't screamed and they're not trying to make a deal. They're a totally different beast.
I get it, but I just think that it's funny considering how important their stuff is to what we do every day. The one small piece.
They play the long game.
Right. No, I get it. I just find it fascinating from a diplomatic standpoint.
It's a good point.
It's a great point.
All right. Elon Musk. Last night he went on Spaces, Traces. And he had special guest Joni Ernst, senator from Iowa, and he talked about USAID. Play 105, please.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a ball of worms. If you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a ball of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a ball of worms. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
That's what we call an extended metaphor. So, as I said earlier, they told, even though they want everybody back to work, they told USAID employees not to come to work today while they sort things out. And there's all sorts of reports from the weekend about them accessing data that they don't have. You're going to hear Democratic members of Congress today. They've already sent a letter to Marco Rubio saying, what up with this? And we're in the midst of another round of stories about whether there's distance between Trump and Musk. The Washington Post has a story this morning that says Trump basically told Musk, go do this stuff. And the Post reports he's not paying close attention, which could be true, right?
It could be, but when you start closing down an agency and people are working from home, it tends to get a little attention.
So here is Trump. And again, Sean, in particular, I want you to read the body language. I took this as kind of a negative, even though the words ostensibly are supportive. Here's again Trump last night at Andrews on the tarmac asked about, do you still have full faith and confidence in Doge leader Musk? Play 107, please.
Do you feel that Elon Musk is delivering on his promises to you? Do you feel he's doing a good job right now with
I
Doge?
do. I think Elon's doing a good job. He's a big cost cutter. Sometimes we won't agree with it and we'll not go where he wants to go, but I think he's doing a great job. He's a smart guy, very smart, and he's very much into cutting the budget of our federal government.
So it seems like Democrats are up in arms about USAID. Are Republicans going to care? Is this one where the press is not in sync with the public, which is like, foreign aid, government bureaucrats?
We talked about this a lot last night at the live event, and I'll just sum it up to say, there's a lot strategically and geopolitically that USAID helps do it, but there is no politician, for the most part, that's going to stand up right now and defend foreign aid because we have a $36 trillion deficit, multiple trillion dollar deficit. So the idea that you're going to stand up there right now and tell the American people, hey, I'm going to defend sending money to a country that you may have even heard of is not politically smart. And that's going to be the big disconnect. The idea, as Dan said, about the tariffs is it's very relatable. Like, I'm not an avocado eater, but
you do like a good Mexican, a good Dos Equis.
I do. I like a good Dos Equis with a lime. And so if you, that's relatable to the average person, right? This is how much it's going to cost me. Telling someone that you're cutting off foreign aid to a country in, Southeast Asia isn't going to resonate. Is it worth having a discussion about the importance? Sure. But I think in the current climate, neither Republicans or Democrats, the idea of cutting spending in foreign aid is going to be something that they get excited about.
Yeah. I think the one place in the long run it will is almost every USAID program has a champion in Congress. And to your point, they're not going to stand up and say, hey, this aid to South Korea to help with AIDS victims, I'm making this up, I'm going to lie in the tracks for. But that was my program, and it did good work. And you called us you said they're criminals. And I think that where you know,
When you
Musk.
take President Bush, PEPFAR,
Right.
like he's going to stand up and say, this is saving lives.
Exactly.
And, right, so there's, but people who have to get elected in 2 years, no.
So I think, one, he's burning some capital with this. The way he talks about it so flippantly, the way he's just dismissive of it, as he keeps doing this, I think you're right. People aren't going to stand up and defend or scream on every program. But he's setting up a clash with people. And I think where Democrats will start to say is, here are the impacts to real people. The Chinese have come in. They're now funding it. We've lost an ally. People are drifting away from us. And as he goes toward domestic programs, at some point, Republicans will join Democrats and say, time out. What are you doing? You're out of control. And by the way, I think you're going to hear Democrats saying this. When we get power, the same precedent is being set. We can just wholeheartedly tell people you're not coming in. We're eliminating stuff. And it'll be your
Democrats
priorities.
want to eliminate program. I'm for that. Just for the record, I think a lot of but I do think that this is the one issue that Elon has is it, to your point, Dan, when it goes too far and he starts touching domestic stuff, that's when I think you're going to see a lot of. I mean, he's got to be careful how he.
To me, the money bite in Trump's soundbite was saying, if we don't agree with them, we're not going to do it. That's like not something you'd normally say
But
about
also,
any cabinet secretary in
we
public.
mentioned this last night. He put J.D. Vance in charge of this,
Yeah.
right? And so to go in and to cut the legs out of a program where you're telling people don't show up anymore, that's very different than saying to J.D. Vance, hey, go exert some oversight to make sure this is done right, that we get rid of waste, that we have, we put an America First agenda in place. That's where, I mean, you're going to start to set a little bit of a clash, because now you're going to pit JD's team against Elon's team.
Yep.
Great point.
And he had Vivek on the Spaces last night, also along with Joni Ernst, Peaches and Herb reunited. Feels so good. We're going to get to you in just a minute. So if you're on the two-way platform and you want to be part of the conversation, if you've never been so before, great. Please raise your electronic hand. We'll get to you in a minute. All right, Democrats over the weekend picked a new chair, Ken Martin. So I said at the event last night that Ken Martin makes Reince Priebus look like Timothy Chalamet. And Reince texted me and said, Timothy Chalamet, pretty good. So that landed at least with one viewer. Ken Martin came out and tried to show everybody that he's got the fire in the belly to take on Donald Trump. You be the judge. 106, please.
Now look, it's time for our party to do three things. First is to unite. We have to rebuild our coalition. We have to ignore the noise. We have to focus with intensity on the goal ahead, which is winning elections to improve people's lives. Second, we need to go on offense. Trump's first weeks have shown us that what happens when amateur hour meets demolition derby, right? And at the same time, he's invited all these billionaires into the Oval Office to mine, extract, and profit off of our government. This is our time. Right now, it's the people's government. It's not another resource for ultra elites to exploit. Lastly, and the third, is we're going to take tonight to enjoy the moment, and we're going to build new alliances, but then we're going to get to work.
So, Dan, the members of Congress, including Schumer and Jeffries, do they look at that performance and say, he's the guy, we're going to ride that horse?
I imagine they made a phone call as soon as he got off the stage and said, easy there, big fella. You are not the national spokesperson who's going to be out there ahead of us. Like, you will speak a little bit when spoken to. Like, we are going to drive this. We will work on the message because we are the elected officials, and you will work with us. It reminds me a little of when Michael Steele took over and he had the famous, like, we're coming at you, even the one-armed midgets, I think was the line. Like, it was just out of control, a little bit excited. Look, I think you want enthusiasm. You want someone who's kind of ready to enter the ring. But the idea that, you know, he is going to be out there and is going to come up with the message and just take the fight to Trump. The party is going to take the fight to Donald Trump. The party will determine, working with the governors and elected officials. And no doubt some candidates will jump, you know, further out than others. But I am sure the leadership said to him, you work with us. We don't, you know, follow behind you.
Yeah, but keep in mind, just as a side note, all those folks weren't behind him, right?
Yes.
They all supported
stage,
Winkler. Is that it?
Wickler.
Wickler. So I think that there's a little bit of like, you know, who's going to be the alpha dog now?
Yeah.
I don't know that he can be the alpha, but metaphorically, I last night, I mean, if this is, that doesn't portend well. At some point, you know, just don't think that was the best.
I wonder if he'll hire a comms director like Mike McCurry was, like someone who can be, or Sean Spicer, someone who can be from.
If only we could be so lucky.
From the comms position at the party, be on TV a lot. I mean, again, I'm just being honest. If I were the booker for a Sunday show, I wouldn't be super excited to have him on. I would every so often, but he's just not. He's just not going to do that.
Well, and that was an undisciplined speech. I mean, just to be candid, that was very undisciplined, and it was like very emotional. And so, as you're making first impressions with donors and with the party, you probably, again, I think they probably made some phone calls and said congratulations, but by the way, let's kind of set straight how this works.
So Dan, obviously this is a week where they're starting on offense. They're having press conferences. They're sending letters to the administration. They're clearly their iron triangle, where they're one side, along with the media, dominant media, and the Washington special interest groups on the left. That machinery's back up. It's like they're whistleblowers. There's all these, FBI agents saying, they take me dead or alive. What's the best case this week? What could happen by Friday for the Democrats in terms of messaging against the administration?
Yeah, I think there's three things. I think one, lawsuits. I think they're being filed left and right on kind of all of these different fronts. If judges start saying no, right, then it's like you've got some momentum. Trump is, this stuff is
lawless.
Is lawless. It gives you the sense of kind of chaotic, unlawful activity. Two, I go back to you're impacting real people. So where they can say that the prices are going up, where they can say people are not being able to receive a service, they are showing we are on your side. They are not helping you. And then I think the third front is ultimately we lost my train of thought, but I'll just stick to those first two. And I think that they have a little bit of momentum now at their back.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor Perry.
Yes, exactly.
I will say this, and we'll see what the polling shows.
It's the beautiful setting of the kitchen
in a week or two. But I think that the Washington elites somewhat misunderstand where the base is, at least the MAGA base. I think these people are willing to take a little bit of pain, and they are excited that a president of the United States is willing to fight. When you put out some of these comments, whether it was H-1Bs or the tariffs, people are like, great, force companies to come back to America, to manufacture here, to grow here. There is a sense that yes, we might have to go through something. Now, again, there's a difference when you actually have to go through it, right?
Exactly.
It's like going on a diet. It's first it looks fine until the first day when they cut your calories. But I think that there's a bit of misunderstanding from a lot of folks in Washington about how much the American people, especially the MAGA base, is willing to put up with because they want a president to finally fight to bring manufacturing and jobs back to America, and are saying, great, I'll go through some short-term pain. The president told me about it because I think it's better for the long-term interest of the country. I don't think people, when I watch a lot of the pundits, I don't think that they fully represent some of the people out in the heartland that are willing to say, you know what, this president's willing to fight for us. He's willing to bring manufacturing jobs back to America.
I will say though, like that sounds a little like Joe Biden, right? We have to do this to get out of COVID. Like it's transitory. It's a little bit of pain. So I think I really, really wonder to what extent people are willing to say, I'm willing to pay higher prices for months. Well, because it's not like it's guaranteed to get me a better outcome. It becomes blurrier and blurrier. The third thing that I was going to say that I've just remembered here is I think you're going to see Democrats begin to highlight where some of these like mass blowouts of entire departments, the FBI doesn't look at how did the cat get in the tree, right? And how do we get Mrs. Doolittle's cat down? They're looking at criminals, terrorists. They are doing real work to keep us safe. When you eliminate all these people, unless you hire somebody that day who comes in fully up to speed, ready to go, you are putting the country and people at risk. And I think, again, it allows the Democrats to say, we are on your side. It's not that there shouldn't be reforms. Right. It's not that the president isn't entitled to his or her someday own team. But the way they're doing it is sloppy, it's chaotic, and it's putting us at risk. And I think you will see Democrats highlight where they believe that is happening in real time.
I don't think he will change. I think you're totally right. I don't think he'll change course if the Democrats say it. Yes. I don't think he'll change course if CNN says it. Okay. I don't think he'll change course if academics say it. Like you see all these academics quoted now. He doesn't care. The thing that might, and I don't think he'll change course if the polls slip a little bit because he's not running for election. To me, and even the courts, I think they'll just pull ahead unless it's an absolute final decision. To me, it's just Republicans in Congress, right?
Yeah. But I think, look, to your point, most people in that base on our side have serious concerns about how the FBI has been conducting itself. And so the idea that we're talking about blowing out agents, yes, that'll resonate with academics and pundits on CNN. But for the average voter out there on the MAGA side, it's like, bye-bye.
Yeah, and again, he only needs the MAGA side for now. He doesn't need even independents, let alone Democrats, because again, there's no election.
Right.
There's no election. All right. Again, we're going to get to you in just a minute. One more topic, and then we'll bring you in. Gabbard and Kennedy. Nothing really bad happened this weekend that I know of.
They're
Right.
treaded water. I mean,
Well, but more than that, Lindsey Graham said he'd vote for which one did he say vote for? Gabbard. And it seemed like the concern now is about Langford. It's about Young. And the Young thing, hard to know how to read that he made up with Elon, because Elon apparently reportedly didn't even ask him about the confirmation. And then obviously there's still concerns about McConnell and Collins and Murkowski. Give me a two-word answer, mandatory two-word answer. What caused Mitch McConnell to get a glowing profile on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl last night? Two-word answer.
Donald Trump.
Correct. I mean, it's kind of incredible. I know we've seen this rehabilitation on the left of Mitch McConnell, but he's now a hero of the left.
Yeah, of course. All you have to do is say anything against Trump as a Republican, and you're going to get a 60 Minutes profile. You probably get a Washington Post style section. I mean, like, that's not hard.
But even Mitch McConnell, it's kind of the acid test. We said last week, and I think you still agree with me, that if Tulsi Gabbard gets out of committee, she'll be confirmed.
Yeah.
I think that's the binary for her. If she doesn't get out of committee, I don't think they're going to force it. But there's a chance.
Susan Collins is yes, she is the only Republican that can win in Maine. I say that lovingly. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple others, but I think she understands that there's no one's gonna bash her over the head for confirming Tulsi Gabbard.
Of course,
right? So
maybe the opposite.
Right. So what I'm saying is, I think that she votes yes on Gabbard. She's on the Intel committee. Yeah. She votes yes. Once that happens, and at the very least, she might be able to say, I'm going to vote for her out of committee to get it to the floor. That's it. Once the dam breaks on that, it's over. I think Susan Collins is the linchpin. She votes yes, and Tulsi gets confirmed.
And you think Kennedy will be confirmed, right?
Yep.
Dan?
I think Sean makes a really smart point, and on Gabbard, and I think that the fact that there's been relative quiet from the MAGA world over the weekend leads me to believe progress is being made. There's something there that they see. There's no need to really release the attack dogs on behalf of Gabbard or RFK. So therefore, I think they likely both go through.
Politically speaking, Susan Collins has a very long leash, because people understand that dynamic in Maine. But no one says, my goodness, you're going to lose your reelection because you voted against a nominee for the cabinet. So there's a lot. I mean, a lot of bills, a lot of legislation that she can vote no on to make sure everyone gets that. Yeah. But voting against a nominee is not. There's not a lot there where they can say, I get it, you need to do that politically. So she's a yes.
Sometimes I need to challenge your cynicism.
She
doesn't only vote because of electoral considerations.
No, she doesn't. But I'm saying that there's an understanding about the dynamic that exists in Maine and what she needs politically. On a nominee, I don't think that's there. That's afforded to you.
I think Sean's right. In 2 years, Collins isn't going down because she voted for Tulsi Gabbard.
According to a tweet, you ever heard of this guy? You ever heard of this guy?
Is
he your neighbor?
Yeah.
This guy? What's that guy's name?
Ben Domenech.
Ben Domenech. You heard of him?
I've seen him.
So this guy, Ben Domenech, you may have heard of. He just tweeted out.
He's married. So there's someone that I know.
Yeah, he's also an AK, Mr. Meghan McCain. He says Senate Republicans think both Young and Collins were moving towards voting for Gabbard over the weekend.
I think that's right.
I think he may be onto something. All right. Joy, welcome in on the move. Tell folks who don't know where you are, getting your steps in. Excellent. And what's on your mind, please?
Yep, I'm in Illinois. Do you mind if I keep walking? Someone commented.
It's good for the show. It gives us a sense of movement and activity.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm in Illinois. Two things. One, Meghan McCain said almost verbatim exactly what was going on in my head for the last couple months the other day when she said, the pushback from moms if RFK does not get confirmed, both parties, I think, have to pay attention. If there's any, Congress person watching, we are very passionate about this issue, as I've stated before. Just take note. I think that, like Dan said, there will be a hole if RFK does not get confirmed. I'm not saying we agree with everything about him, but he is bringing up things that we have been wanting for a very long time. And moms are passionate and they can mobilize, especially on social media. So just take note if anybody is watching.
So noted, Joy.
Yes. But the second thing was my husband is in the solar industry. So he was over the weekend like, okay, with the tariffs particularly. But there's a few things that are kind of starting to threaten the solar industry in our minds. One is the freeze, which admittedly, everything's moving so fast, I haven't quite kept up. I don't know if that's still happening with like grants. There's a lot of grants connected with the solar industry, as well as a lot of the panels are made in China, Mexico. So tariffs. And I told my husband, I was like, I might have a little bit of inside info on the tariffs. The morning meeting's telling me they might not last long. So, whatever that's worth. So I just wanted your thoughts. It doesn't sound like Trump loves solar. So
Yep.
should he be, looking for other things to do, I guess.
Great question, Joy. Sean, Dan, what can Joy tell her husband about future?
Well, I think far be it for me to give career advice, but Trump certainly is not a wholehearted fan of renewable energies. He's more a fan of the traditional because it is less expensive as a rule right now. And so as part of his America First, like how can I lower prices? He is more in favor of traditional sources of fuels. I think that, on your first point, like as a Democrat, I would love to see Republicans lose a little bit of their grip on the Tulsi and RFK voters. I think they were key to, or partly a part of Trump's successful coalition. We need to find a way to win them back. If they are disappointed that Trump and Republicans did not stand by these two nominees and they become, let's say, free agents again, hopefully we can find a way to welcome you back into the tent and assume the mantle on these very important issues that you speak of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think on both the EV part, you're right. I mean, there's not going to be any more subsidies for
electric vehicles,
wind farms, windmills. And I think it's frankly, I hope there's a bigger discussion about some of the consequences of what the reality of some of that, because it gets sold as one thing and it's quite the opposite. Yeah. So that being said, I will just echo again exactly that. She's absolutely right. What RFK and Tulsi have done to the party has been huge. For all the talk in the past couple decades about Republicans and women, Tulsi and RFK have brought a coalition that probably couldn't have been won over on traditional issues, but because of
definitely couldn't.
Well, I mean, there was always this sense about education and things like this, but this wellness movement, this.
If I had said to you a year ago, Donald Trump is going to get traction with some women because he's going to become a champion of wellness, you would have laughed.
I would have.
With a Kennedy.
Yeah, I know. But just the idea, I mean, think about that, right? The idea that you have rallies right now from pretty solid Republicans and conservatives supporting Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah. Kennedy.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's wicked.
So Joy, maybe take up some sort of hobby, maybe Etsy. Just look for some alternatives. Joy, thank you for coming. Great questions. I really appreciate it. Come back regularly, please.
Or your husband should vote Democratic.
Yeah. Dustin, come on in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind, please, after you unmute.
Thanks, everyone. Mark, first let me say, as a proud graduate of the Edward R. Murrow School of Communications at Washington State, this platform has started to restore my faith in journalism. So I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Very kind.
Quick question for Dan and Sean, actually. Dan, there were a number of clips from the DNC meeting that went viral for all the wrong reasons this weekend. And one of the questions that I had, similar to the questionnaire that Kamala had responded to way back in the primary in 2019 or 2020, why do they keep inviting moderators that are kind of bullying them into these positions on identity politics and getting them to commit to these very, very far left things and getting them on the record, as opposed to people who are going to ask them questions about the economy and that appeal to a broader audience?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, yeah, it's something that plagues both parties, and right now, it's the Democrats are in the bullseye on this. If you think about Republican candidates who have to, if they get out of line with MAGA, MAGA speaks up and says, you need to do A, you need to do B, and you need to do C.
And they certainly cater to Fox and Newsmax.
Oh, and
talk radio.
Yeah, so both parties have a little bit of this problem. I think that what we saw at the DNC this weekend at times was terrible. I mean, that is just not, when you're trying to create a new image or rehabilitate your image, these people coming on stage who are like, I'm going to really make a play for this community and say some stuff that's very controversial. It'll get me clicks. It'll get me, raise more money online from the base. It sets the party back. It's being watched on national television. All politics is almost national to some extent now. And so it does not help the party, but it's always going to happen. And both parties have to wrestle with, like, how do you appease your base while still appealing to the middle of the country?
In my experience, if you said to the Democratic Party comms people, how did this happen? They say stuff like, we're Democrats.
Yeah, right. We're a Big Ten party.
Big Ten party.
Except we're not.
But it really was a ridiculously missed moment, a counterproductive moment. Even if Martin turns out to be a great chair, there was no messaging this weekend that was helpful, right?
No, there wasn't. I mean, and Sean even pointed out when we saw it, the people standing behind Ken Martin. I mean, that
Ilar Oman, baby. Well done.
We're a Big Ten party. We love everybody, but that may not be necessarily the message that you want to send. And I think that it was a missed opportunity. There was a lack of discipline, both on the staff level, organizing this. Usually you vet speeches and say, okay, you're going to be speaker number 3. You're going to say these 3 or 4 things. If that was planned, that was horrifying.
Well, I think he won. I mean, I just, in fairness to him, again, you win an election like that, you don't have staff, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, there was, and by the way,
but if you're super sophisticated, you have staff.
Oh, no. He should have, right? For the amount of money that was raised, by the way, for that chairman's race, Wickler was getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for a DNC.
Hard to know what he spent it on, right?
I know. Well, it's funny because
Dunkin' Donuts.
You have, especially when you have 450 delegates, you're doing parties and sending them swag and all that stuff. But I want to get back to a broader point here, which is interesting, because if you had told me 5 years ago the Republicans are the party that, I mean, think about J.D. Vance sat down with Margaret Brennan, Donald Trump sitting down with Kristen Welker. We're the party that's actually going to places. Think of the people that Caroline Leavitt called in the briefing room. Sure, she called on some people on the right who hadn't gotten a question in 4 years in the Biden White House. We are actually the party that goes everywhere, talks to everyone, right? She took questions from all of those people in the briefing room. Trump has gone to multiple outlets. JD's gone to multiple outlets. Marco Rubio, when he got confirmed, started with NBC, then went to ABC and then Gayle King at CBS. It's the Democratic Party that won't talk to Fox, that won't go on a lot of these podcasts.
One of Biden's former comms people has an op-ed piece on Fox.com today.
Yeah, the Deputy Press Secretary, Andrew Bates.
So that's a little.
Trump calls Maggie Haberman. Kamala Harris wasn't calling Brett Baer. To just chew his ear and work on him the way Republicans go anywhere.
But it's just funny though that if you actually think about the contrast in how we're messaging. The Republicans will go anywhere and talk to anyone at the highest levels. The Democrats are the ones who shut out Fox and any other conservative voice, which is kind of funny to me. What are you afraid of? I mean, there's a couple of these guys. Buttigieg, to his credit. So one thing he actually did do was he did do television interviews on some alternative, on right-leaning outlets. But I don't know why. I mean, it's not like they're being treated unfairly.
But I think for Republicans in the Trump era, they relish to some extent going to the left media.
Oh, I love it.
And stirring it up because they stand by what they say. They know a lot of this stuff is popular and they're willing to be like, you're going to come at me on immigration and I'm going to fire back. Democrats don't want to go on Fox and talk about it, or they hadn't wanted to, inflation and immigration. And so they just kind which was a problem.
They want to go on MSNBC and talk about Project 2025.
Yeah, and democracy.
It's like
Dustin, I'm like Ellery Queen. My sense is you're in Mountain Time. Am I right?
Central.
All right. Where are
the
you?
Clock behind me is broken, if that's what you're looking at.
I was going off the clock and the picture.
Well, it's still right twice a day.
I was going off the clock and the picture. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Please come back regularly.
Thank you.
Great question. All right. Let's see who we're bringing in next. Samuel, you ever go by Sam, Sammy, or it's always Samuel?
Anything you want. You can call me anything. That's
All right.
yeah,
Samala.
but
Love the stuff
Pamela,
behind
that's
you.
fine.
The Dora, is that yours?
Yeah, I collect cool little movie posters from my
Yeah.
local theater.
That's
Yeah.
a good collection. Where you calling us from today?
A suburb of Pittsburgh, a little south of the city.
Yeah. Why are there so many quarterbacks from Pittsburgh? Why does that happen? Is it the
There's
water?
we have good water here, I think.
Yeah. It's the water.
Yeah.
That's a Steeler. Is that a Saints thing over there? What's that thing on your far
No,
right?
no, I'm an Eagle Scout from my Boy Scouting days. That's
Got it.
Florida Lee from
Give us
the
a
Boy Scouts.
scout oath, real quick. 3, 2, 1.
Uh, a scout. Well,
Yeah,
on my
that's
honor,
how
I'll
it
do my
starts.
best, do my duty to guard my country.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years.
It's been a while. All right.
So yeah, I'm
Understood.
sorry.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just love hearing the scout oath. Welcome in.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. Tell us what's on your mind, sir.
Yeah. So first time, long time. I think since the RNC last year. That's when I first started listening. But I was just wondering how you guys see the Supreme Court in like 4 years after Trump is done. Do you see like Clarence Thomas retiring and him replacing him? Is that like the only move you see happening and changing on the Supreme Court?
Awesome question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Get out your actuarial tables and weigh in.
I mean, Clarence Thomas is the one that's rumored to be potentially thinking of stepping down. On the Democratic side, there was a push to get Sonia Sotomayor to step down because she's had some health issues. She refused. There's a lot of hope that in the next 4 years she's able to make it through. But other than Clarence Thomas, I have not heard of any Republican that is thinking seriously.
Alito.
You think will? Okay.
Could.
I predict, and I almost never predict.
Yeah,
but
judges, juries.
Trump's going to get 3 picks.
Wow.
So Alito, Thomas,
and perhaps I'm Sonia Sotomayor.
I predict I was going to get 3
yeah.
picks.
Well, to the question, I mean, I will say that what will it look like? Number one, these guys get it more than anything now. I mean, because of the pressure that was put on the left to Sotomayor, because of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think these guys get it. If you're going to retire, you need to do it when your party controls, or you have some input, unless there's some extenuating circumstance. So my guess is that on the Republican side, whether you're Thomas or Alito, you factor that in right now. Do I want to stick around? How's my health? On the Democratic side, I agree. I think that if Trump gets one more, and we can go not just 6-3, 7-2.
I'll tell you.
You think about how young Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, Gorsuch. That's not a bad.
That's a heck of a legacy right there.
I will tell you that all 3 of them have disappointed MAGA, right? All 3 of them at different times. I'll be curious to see if he picks somebody when the first seat opens up, and I think he'll get at least one, but I think as many as 3. I'll be curious to see if he picks somebody who's purer in terms of MAGA than those 3 were.
What's that Judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see her name get thrown in.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it. The other question is, does he pick a non-jurist to like a non-lawyer to go on the Supreme Court? It's happened to Andre Day O'Connor.
A non-lawyer or a non-judge?
A non-judge. Sorry, that is more of a MAGA politician.
Yeah.
Who he'd have a high degree of confidence would side.
Well, you think about the lawyers that have defended. I mean, I don't see that out of the realm of possibility.
Maybe Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
Pam Bondi.
Stephen Miller. Yeah. I mean, who knows?
Stephen a lawyer?
I don't think he's.
You don't have to be.
You don't have
to.
No,
but I don't think
it's a tough job to do with that being a lawyer. Great question, Samuel. Thank you for coming on. Please come back regularly. Don't be a stranger. And if you want to rotate in new posters, love those, but we've seen them. So next time you come, maybe put some new ones up because those are good, and I bet you got more.
By the way, if people think Democrats are depressed now, if the Supreme Court goes to 7-2, you have not seen depression.
Yeah, I agree. All right, James and Barry, not sure exactly what that means, but we're about to find out. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Unmute. Tell us where you are. What's on your mind?
Hey, thank you for picking me. My name is James. Barry's my rabbit. So I know everybody likes pets on the show. So he's been sitting here watching the show the entire time. And
are we going to get a look at Barry?
Oh, of course you are.
The rabbit of the hair.
You pulled that out of a hat?
I pulled him out of a hat.
Yeah,
so Barry, he's a big fan of Two-Way. He's been watching him ever since the very beginning. And surprisingly, he's been sitting up here for 45 minutes waiting to get on the show. So I've kept him pretty calm.
All right. Well, we would have called on you earlier if we knew what the stakes were. But thank you, James and Barry, for joining.
Yeah. Here, I'll hold him up here. So here you go.
It's Xanax for the rabbit.
Here you go. There's Barry the bunny right there.
Amazing. How long have you had Barry?
He's 5 years old.
Amazing. Beautiful.
And most people are surprised that rabbits can live about 14 years in captivity. It's kind of like having a dog.
So it's a pretty major commitment.
James, are you in the path of the fires?
I am. I live, for you historians, I live about 10 minutes from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. So I'm in Simi Valley.
Are you south of the library?
I am northeast of the library.
You are
And
very near an In-N-Out burger.
there's an In-N-Out burger about 2 minutes from my house.
Yeah, believe me, I know where they all are.
Right off the
Very lucky.
Stearns.
You're very lucky. You're a very lucky American. Not all of us
we
can
are.
live within 2 minutes of an In-N-Out burger.
What's
on your mind, sir?
We didn't get any fires in Simi Valley, but definitely we had rolling electricity failures and stuff like that. But yeah, most of the fires were either south of me or east of me.
Yep.
So
good.
So we've been very fortunate. Anyway, so lifelong Democrat, but some of my background may surprise you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dan's got the best smile on television, but and if more Democrats were like Dan, I would start voting Democrat again. But I have kind of sort of like not changed my affiliation. I did vote for Dean Phillips in the primary because we have a closed primary in California. But I did vote for Trump 3 times, and wasn't sure about 2016. But I wasn't a big fan of Hillary. And then I held my nose in 2020 because I'd kind of had it with all the tweeting and all the kind of stuff that went on in the background. But after these last 4 years, it was very easy to vote for him again. And I voted for Michael Dukakis the very first time. And I voted for Clinton twice, and he was my favorite president. And voted for Gore. But
James, let's play some word association. One word. Just give me one word. Ready?
Yes.
Karen Bass.
She's got to go. Oh, that's more than one word.
You could use failure.
Yeah, failure. There you go. Thank you, Sean. Gavin Newsom.
Terrible.
Kamala Harris.
Underqualified.
Okay.
Is that kind of 2 words, I guess?
What's the name of that guy who ran against Karen Bass? Caruso. You know him?
Rick.
Yeah, he was like kind of a business owner. I think he owns like the malls and stuff. He seemed like he was much more of a moderate.
Okay.
Competent.
Otani.
I don't know.
Shohei.
All right, James. Thank you for answering. Thank you for answering. Are you a lifetime Californian?
No, I'm originally from Kansas City. I've lived in California for 18 years. And so again, I do vote locally. I do vote Democrat. I voted for Julia Brownlee. She's a 26th district, represents Ventura County.
Yes, sir. Your accent is a perfect amalgamation of Kansas and California.
By the way,
I know. That's what
forget
somebody else told me
burger. What is your favorite barbecue in Kansas City?
That would probably be Oklahoma Joe's.
Oh,
that is correct. Yeah. That is a good answer.
Really?
Very
yeah,
solid.
Oklahoma Joe's.
Jack Stacks, but okay.
All right,
Jack
James,
Stack is pretty good.
Enough with the preamble. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, actually, Dustin kind of brought it up. So again, I would love to start voting Democrat again. I'm hanging on for dear life. But man, I watched that DNC convention, election deal, and man, it was rough. I mean, it was rough. And I'll be honest with you, I was very disappointed when Trump brought up DEI when he started talking about the crash in out in Washington D.C. And I just think that was.
How did you feel last week when Trump brought up DEI, when he did the freeze, and then kind of what you're seeing kind of over this weekend? I mean, there's so much out. Are you excited about what he's doing? Are you supportive of what he's doing? Or is this the side of Trump that makes you want to hold your nose?
So I thought his speech regarding the crash started off really good. And I just shook my head when he brought up DEI. It was just not the right time to do that. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong. And I don't think DEI caused the crash. I think there may be some DEI hiring practices involved with air traffic control. And I'm actually a pilot. I work in that industry and been flying my whole life. That's actually what brought me to California.
Are you a professional pilot?
I'm a professional pilot. I'm a chief pilot for a Part 135 charter company. And I fly all over the world in long range corporate jets. And I've flown into DCA several times to fly ex-presidents, because you can only go in there as a corporate pilot. If you're flying a dignitary, you can't go in there otherwise. Yeah, otherwise you got to go to the
somebody has to have a gun, a license to carry.
Yeah, I got Secret Service on board and all that kind of stuff going on. And I was just out there in Dulles for the inauguration, and that was really cool. And so, yeah, so overall, I feel like Trump's his worst enemy many times. Like sometimes it's just better to say less. But I don't know how I feel necessarily about what's going on with the tariffs. Time will tell. You know, he ran really hard on getting the cost of goods down, and now I feel like this could lead a different direction. Even though it may be only temporary, it kind of goes against what he was really pushing against, you know, the economy and obviously immigration. So we'll see where that goes.
I think for the Democratic Party, it's more likely that the first step in you kind of coming back to us, let's say, or feeling good about us, is going to be that Trump is going to make you a little queasy. And then I think over the next 6 to 9, maybe 12 months, the party's going to figure out what it wants to say, what it's for. New leaders will emerge beyond the existing folks that you know, and at least locally you lament. And so that's why I'm curious. The fact that you're like, this is not the side of Trump that I necessarily like. I voted for him on cost of good. I think a lot of people bring inflation down, make the economy better. So I think it's likely you'll see Democrats point out his faults at first, appropriately so, not the hysteria. And then we will give you reasons to vote for us.
James, let me ask you a question. If we could get into a time machine, go 18 months ahead, and the results of Trump's tariff were that more manufacturing ended up coming into the United States, would you look back on this time and say, wow, I underestimated what he was really doing?
I think it's kind of like possibly yes, if the United States benefits from it. I just don't know if using tariffs as kind of a threat against other countries is what I would probably go for. Like, hey, we don't like people coming across the border, we're going to throw in tariffs. Or there's fentanyl coming across the border, we're going to throw in tariffs. I don't know if that's why he's presenting him as sort of like a threat for other things kind of unrelated.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I think one of the things that a lot of people find refreshing who have supported President Trump is that for years it's always been excuses. This is why we can't do things. This is why it won't work, or this is why you can't. I remember at one point when we first started the first term, we're talking about NAFTA. I said, well, unfortunately, it's the term is in force. He said, I don't care. We're getting a bad deal for American workers, dairy farmers, our IPs getting ripped off, and Trump is willing to fight. And I think that was something that most people, especially on the right, had not seen for a long time. Somebody that was willing to say, I don't care that it's never been done this way before. Yeah. And he's gotten results. And so there is an area. That's why I'm saying I feel like we should be willing to give him a little bit of latitude. We've been saying forever, we got to deal with the border. We just fought an election over largely illegal immigration. And now he's willing to say, all right, I'm going to use all the tools in my toolbox. And oh, by the way, the last time that he did it in the first term, you saw companies start to bring back manufacturing here. So net, I get it. People should be worried. But if the president of the United States is willing to fight to bring back jobs, to make more secure country, to stop fentanyl from coming in, I'm willing to give the guy some latitude.
Yeah. James, couldn't have enjoyed you joining more. We hope you'll come back regularly. Always bring Barry, and we'll all be looking to next time we've got to get on the road. We'd like you to fly us. Thank you, James.
You.
Really appreciate it. All right, folks, we say here on Two-Way, we have conversations like no other. Okay. Today at 2 o'clock, we're having just one such conversation. All right. It's the second installment of our Diner series. President Trump is really serious about trying to get some sort of different relationship with Greenland. And so today, the Diner, it's a special kind of conversation. You won't find it anywhere else. A big national poll sampling what Americans think about the prospect of America having a different kind of relationship with Greenland. And then amongst those who will join us, besides David Burrell, our partner at WIC, who does the poll and works with us on the Diner, 2 former U.S. ambassadors to Denmark, one Republican, Carla Sands, and one Democrat, Rufus Gifford, who's joined us before. And your participation. So we really welcome you to come at 2 o'clock today, Eastern Time, and join us in a discussion. We'll look at the poll. We'll look at what some people have said online. And the whole point of the Diner is right in rhythm with Two-Way, to expose people to different arguments. How do people react to arguments they hadn't thought of, to our positions they might disagree with? So please join us at 2 o'clock today for that discussion. And then at 6 o'clock, third episode today, I'll be back.
That's greedy.
Two-Way tonight, 6 o'clock. We'll look at all the day's news and the latest update on the tariffs, on Elon Musk, and everything else. Maybe a rabbit update. You never know. And then tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, We won't be in the kitchen.
No, we will
What?
not.
I will not be in the
Thank
kitchen.
God, we only have one
Probably
guest room.
We'll all go back. We'll all go back to home base. But we're very grateful to the entire Spicer family.
Yes.
Made us waffles, gluten-free waffles.
Yeah,
Gonna be
yeah.
delicious.
No GMOs.
Yeah, and we actually have some Chick-fil-A here.
I was gonna say our kids would love this breakfast.
Dig into. So
Chick-fil-A.
thank you for
Craft
everybody
services.
who asked questions. Thank you for being here. Last night, did we show the clips, the stills from last night? I don't think we did. Put up 108. Couldn't have enjoyed it more. A great opportunity. 108. Great opportunity. 108. I said a great
Kitchen
opportunity.
difficulties.
Coming. Got a little time. No rush.
We only rented this equipment till 10.
Here we go. Just some highlights from last night. There you see three amigos on the stage. Dan's smiling in that shot, so we chose it for that reason.
It wasn't a photo that he wasn't smiling, just to be clear.
Great questions. You'll just stay with us till the last one, because the last one is the money shot taken by Dan and me under the directorial supervision of Sean Spicer. There's two guys out front.
On the marquee.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Marquee. And there you go. Crowd shot behind us, selfie. Dan held the camera. I pressed the button. Team effort, as always. So again, very grateful to folks who come out. Lots of people ask, will we come to your city? We will. Or your kitchen. We will eventually. But if you've got a theater that you know wants to host us, we're into plug and play. Contact us. Let us know. Several hundred seats or more, and we'll be there.
Warmer environments right now are welcome.
Yeah, yes,
right?
exactly. In the winter, and then like Aspen in the summer. If you got it, we're there.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and then the three of us will see you at 9 a.m. Go two-way. Have a great day.